Here we go. We are going to read the epilogue, so it comes at the end of our story of The Willoughbys by Lois Lowry. Oh, what is there to say at the happy conclusion of an old-fashioned story? There are details to be filled in and explained, and of course the reference made to future events. How did Commander Melinoff's young son make his way halfway around the world with only a silly feathered hat full of Swiss francs and no passport or other official documents? Well, he was an old-fashioned, enterprising lad. In Rotterdam, one of the major seaports of Europe, he stowed away on a vessel heading across the Atlantic with its cargo. He was discovered, of course, and was put to work as a cabin boy, badly treated, overworked, never paid. And he cleaned his underwear, his clean underwear was stolen by brigands and in the Azores. But he made it to his destination, and it was better for it. Having overcome hardships successfully, he would go on eventually to become the president of his father's company, and to maintain its reputation for the finest confectionaries. Sad to say, the candy bar that Commander Melinoff worked so hard on never became a success. Perhaps the fault lay in its name. He had often said, thinking of Lickety Twist, such a triumph, that the name was everything. But the name of the candy bar, Little Ruthie, he had named the candy bar Little Ruthie, and it simply never caught on. He didn't really care. His fortune was already vast, and when his son was restored to him, and when he married Nanny, should come as no surprise that he had. He felt fulfilled in every way. Names, though, did remain the bit of a problem. In happy confusion of the evening of Commander Melinoff's son's appearance, one of the twins asked the disheveled boy, "What's your name?" The boy replied, "Barnaby." The twins looked at each other. "See," one suggested. "See what?" asked the new Barnaby. "See my son!" Commander Melinoff exclaimed. Still beside himself with joy, he cupped the boy's dirty face in his hand, kissed each cheek, and beamed down at him. "No, we meant that we're also Barnabys. I'm Barnaby A," said one, "and I'm Barnaby B, so he has to be Barnaby C." "Nonsense. No son of mine is going to be C. Do you two have middle names? We will rename you with middle names." The twins sighed and shuffled their feet in embarrassment. Tim stepped forward to exclaim, "I'm Timothy Anthony Macaulay Willoughby," he pointed out, "because our parents, who were, excuse me, Nanny, dolts, thought it would be important to have many syllables as possible. That is, if one was a boy." He glanced sympathetically at his sister Jane. "And so the twins are..." "Well, the night the twins were born, they had just been to an Italian restaurant, so they are..." And he looked at his brothers. "Do you want to say it?" he asked them. The twins nodded. "I'm Barnaby Linguini Rotini Willoughby," the one said with a sigh. "And I'm Barnaby Ravioli Fusilini Willoughby," his brother said, blushing, explained. "Oh, my goodness," Commander Melinoff said. "I don't quite know what to do about that, but I am not fond of A, B, and C. I fear it will hinder you and eventually in the business world. Any suggestions?" He looked around, seeking help. "Why don't we change their names?" Tim said. "Yes, I'd like to be Bill," Barnaby A said. "And could I be Joe?" his twin asked. And so it was done. They went before a judge, were adopted along with their sister and brother, and became Bill and Joe, which they remained their entire lives very happily. After the children all became official Melinoffs, the commander stopped, wondering where he had heard the name Willoughby before. He had not burned it along with all the Swiss correspondence. He might have reread the note that... After the children became official Melinoffs, the commander stopped, wondering where he had heard the name Willoughby before. He had not burned it, along with all the Swiss correspondence. He might have reread the note that had once been attached to baby Ruth and noted the pencil instruction. If there is any reward to be had for this beastly baby, it must go to the Willoughbys. And it would have answered the question. But it might have raised new questions. So it is fortunate that the note and the mystery disappeared. The third Barnaby retained the name, but was always known as Junior. Commander Melenov's name, it seemed, was also Barnaby. He later invented something called Junior Mints, which might have been quite successful, had someone else, as it turned out, not already invented them. Nothing ever surpassed Lickety-Twist. Baby Ruth, when she became an adult, made a search for her biological mother and found that the woman's life had taken a turn for the better, and she was now living quite comfortably in Champaign, Illinois. Ruth had the wicker basket gold-plated as a souvenir and gave it to her for Christmas. She married, surprisingly, her stepbrother Tim, who, as predicted, became an attorney. The brass plate on his office door at the candy factory said, Timothy Anthony Macaulay Willoughby Melenoff, Esquire of Council. The job allowed him to be bossy and belittling, but he adored his wife and was never ruthless again. The twins, Bill and Joe, never married. Today they operate a chain of clothing stores called Big Sweaters, which often refers to 2-for-1 prices to parents of twins. Jane grew up and became a professor of feminist literature. Eventually, she married a man named Smith and had triplet daughters, whom she named Lavender, Arpeggio, and Noxzema. The postmaster and his wife in Switzerland ran the little post office efficiently for many, many years. They never had children, and just as well, because they didn't care for the mess that children made. Sometimes Commander Melenoff, with his second wife, Nanny, and their 6 children, when they were still young, visited Switzerland on vacations, hiking in the summer and skiing in the winter. They always cordially stopped in the village post office to say hello and have a cup of tea. During such visits, the 4 former Willoughbys, who had no connection after all to the postmaster and his wife, always excused themselves politely and took a few moments to walk together in the serene little path nearby. There at the foot of the mountain, they stood solemnly, passing binoculars back and forth and gazing at the treacherous peak that had orphaned the 4 of them. Together they saluted the distant figures of their parents who had frozen into place, happy to achieve such heights with gleaming smiles on their faces forever. It was not a sad occasion, really, just something the Willoughbys did, and always followed with Coco. The end. I hope you enjoyed me reading Lois Lowry's The Willoughbys to you. I am officially in love with this book. I totally encourage you, if you have access to Netflix, to watch The Willoughbys on Netflix and compare and contrast the book and the movie. I could go on about how they're similar. I could go on about how they are completely different. And that they are both wonderful, and that I hope you enjoyed going on this little journey with me and following the story of the Willoughbys.